We mentioned earlier in the program that highly pathogenic avian influenza, or HPAI, has been confirmed in a bird in Nebraska. While it was just confirmed here in the state, it has spread to commercial barns in other states. To learn more about the implications to the poultry industry, we sat down with UNL Livestock marketing economist Elliott Dennis.
Yeah, it really has, and really what we were talking about last time is the different, seeing HPAth really be in different flyways, with it being confirmed in Lincoln here and also even in Missouri. Really what we're concerned about is in commercial operations. If it is in commercial operations, then we have to go through and basically exterminate the birds. That has an important issue for supply going to the market. And really what that ends up happening is we start to reduce our exports, and we really start to put more poultry out of storage. And so good thing that we have some storage, cold storage availability, but we are going to see those prices increase as we start to reduce that supply.
What have you seen in terms of reduction of supply? Are you able to track some numbers from USDA on that?
Yeah, so USDA releases their slaughter numbers every 2 weeks, and so we're going to be tracking that. But normally what we'll see is in these types of situations, using historical HPAth outbreaks is normally about 7 to 10% reduction in that supply. So consumers are going to be likely seeing a little bit higher prices, which when we talk about the other meat products, it has important demand implications, because as those prices go up, people tend to substitute into pork and beef products.
That's the good news, but for those poultry producers out there, we talked last time you were on Market Journal back in 2015 when this was last widespread. We saw a consumer's reaction. What was it, 20 or 30% reduction at the time?
Yeah, it's pretty substantial, and it really has to do with the sort of media, that kind of the attention it gets, and really kind of that zoonotic component. So if there's a lot of concern that potentially it's a health hazard, then we see that reduction in consumer demand a lot more. And this is not different than other foreign animal diseases. We talked African swine fever, for example, and just consumers are just generally concerned and need to be provided with some consumer confidence and messaging out there.
Well, Elliott, changing up the conversation a little bit, we were seeing that a cattle on feed report come out. What did you take notice of in that report?
Yeah, so first off, we had all-time high cattle on feed, which feels like every time we have a report, it's like, wow, we have set record numbers. And so that was the first thing. And the February report is really unique because we get to see marketings and placements by cattle that have less than 1,000 head of capacity. And really where that is at is about 15% of placements and marketing come from these. So not an inconsequential amount. So just, as we talk about farmer feeders, particularly here in Iowa and in Nebraska, they do, constitute, a portion of the cattle on feed throughout the year. Another thing to note was the placement weights. So we often get aggregate placements, and then we get placement weights. Really, there are lighter placements. And really what that means is cattle are going to finish at lighter weights.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the implications of that here in a moment, but let's talk about the price of corn. The price of feed is going up for that cattle producer out there, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've seen corn prices go up quite a bit. And really what we can do is, what does this mean for the cow-calf producers who ultimately is going to sell to the feedlot? We know corn is the number one feed input that we generally proxy all of the other feed costs with. And what we see is that relative to a 650-pound steer, when prices go up, we tend to actually pay a little bit less for that feeder steer, and the opposite happens, that we tend to discount heavier animals. And that's largely because we don't want to have heavy animals that have really high feed intake, and so we just don't want them to be there as large.
Mm-hmm. Because of that, what are you seeing when it comes to quality of beef as we move forward here?
Yeah, so we're really in this kind of narrowing of the choice select spread is generally how we're valuing that quality grade. As we start to build in throughout the year, that will start to widen a lot more. And particularly, I think we can see that potentially widen a lot more. We know that animals that are placed lighter tend to finish lighter, and lighter animals tend to grade more select. And so when we have a larger cattle on feed that are lighter weights, that can really put a large pressure, especially since we're placing those lighter animals at a time when we're going to need a lot of choice product through the summer grilling. So it will ultimately incentivize producers to feed cattle a little bit longer, and really there's going to be that trade-off between, should I feed them a little bit longer to capture that premium on the choice select spread, relative to the price of corn.
Elliott, real quick, want to leave the last word with you. Final piece of advice when it comes to risk management you'd like to leave us with.
Yeah, I think anyone who's been watching the news over the last couple months realize that there's a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty, both in the domestic market and the international market. Livestock risk protection is one of those tools that can really be beneficial. When we're talking about really people as we're going to the calving season, the unborn calves LRP is really giving producers right now an opportunity to price in some of the best prices we've been able to achieve really since we've been tracking it. So I think if you haven't explored that option and are looking to manage, go from not managing risk to manage some sort of price risk management. Livestock risk protection, especially with the increase in subsidies from the government, is really a great advantage.